Good morning, I am Aman Pourkarimi, Head of Consulting at Dawes Group, a dedicated department specialising in bespoke projects to drive best practice in our clients' travel programmes. I'm delighted today, as part of our On Your Mark seminar, to be joined by Dawes CEO and Chair of the Business Travel Association, Suzanne Horner. Suzanne, good morning.
Good morning, Aman. And thank you very much to everyone that's joined us today. It's a great setting, Loughborough University, and we really look forward to sharing with you some of our news today.
Gosh, Suzanne, what a year has it been for travel? I'm sure our clients are keen to know your thoughts on the impact it has had on business travel for 2021 and beyond. So let's start with the report released by the government's Global Travel Task Force, which was set up to develop a framework for a safe and sustainable return to international travel when the time is right. What's your view on their findings and recommendations, Suzanne?
Thanks, Aman. So the Global Task Force originally was set up at the last lockdown, so not just this lockdown. And I think there was a lot of thought that it disappeared during this recent lockdown, but actually it's worked in the background throughout the whole of the pandemic. And we've had the great opportunity, obviously, as my role at the BTA, we've had the great opportunity of having input to that behind the scenes. The recent framework that's come out, the traffic light system, I think in principle is right. And in principle, it's probably what we all expected. But still today, there's a lot to come out and a lot of understanding to what's to come out in the report. Green, does that mean green? And there's a huge campaign right now led by EasyJet that green should mean green. And therefore, if you fly to a green zone, you should be able to flow quite freely to that green zone and return. Amber will be some home quarantine and PCR testing. And then obviously the red zones will be full quarantine at the airport. I guess the key thing for me that I'm looking forward to developing or seeing how it develops, is when something goes on to the green zone or the green list and when it comes off. The last time the bad experiences we had is where they made an announcement one day that a country was going into lockdown and people had 24 hours to get out of the country. Now, as we've seen with India this week, there was real concerns about the variations that were coming out of there, and there was a heads up that it was going to happen. And then straight away, we then got an announcement that says, as at Friday, India will be on the red zone. And that kind of preparation and that kind of lead-in time is perfect for us. So I'm hoping that the government takes that kind of process and that procedure and carries that through when we start traveling again.
Agreed. There was that farcical situation where Spain was added onto the approved list, the travel corridor approved list, and then 3 weeks later taken off again. And I think our numbers showed it shouldn't have been put on in the first place. So we do need that kind of government support. And when do you predict business travel will return in any significant numbers?
I mean, it's very difficult to understand when people say significant numbers. Most people make reference back to 2019 numbers. So when do we get back to that? If I'm honest, I do think that'll take us a good 2 to 3 year recovery. If we look at some of the previous recoveries we've had to go through, we had the financial crisis, we've also had the ash cloud, 9/11, all the other things I guess we've gone through. But the financial crisis was quite interesting. It was a real 2 to 3 year return. And I think we'll probably see similar happening in this pandemic. What I do expect, though, is a bigger uptake in corporate travel, probably from September time. I think the government still has to get through the local elections. And then, of course, we've got holiday season and everyone trying to get away on holiday, and that will become the big focus. But I do expect an upturn in corporate travel from September.
Okay, yeah, me included. I booked a holiday this summer, so hoping to go.
There you go.
Well, what's your view on what travel management companies will or perhaps should be doing in the coming months to help organizations in preparation for such wide-scale return?
I guess that question's a bit like how long is a piece of string, because there's so many things that people now have to take into consideration. Number one is, is the country on the green list or the amber list or the red list, and what hoops do I need to jump through for that? Secondly, we've got Brexit. And let's be fair, I think Brexit's probably been overshadowed by the pandemic, but all of the changes to passport and visa regulations are now in place. And then, of course, there's other things that are still very high on everyone's agenda, such as carbon offset and people really looking at permissible travel. Is it right to travel, and when is the right time? And is it right for the business to travel? And so for me, I think that there's never been a better time for a travel manager or for someone that's responsible for travel to really start to do their homework now and look at the travel policy and really understand what their business wants to try and achieve to come out of this in readiness, I guess, for the uptake in travel.
Thank you, Suzanne. And my last question to you is on behalf of the travel managers who have joined us today, and some perhaps worried over their roles with shrinking travel. What's your advice to them, and how can they tailor their roles to be impactful to their employees' revised strategy relating to travel?
I think it's a great question, Aman. And I think if the pandemic has taught us nothing, it's taught us that we have to be very flexible. And I think the rules that we all did before are certainly not the rules that we're going to do going forward. And when we've heard just recently, as you know, one of our customers really boldly is looking to potentially take away the role of the travel manager and replace that role with a sustainability manager. Right. And as opposed to people being given a travel budget, they're potentially going to look at a carbon budget. Right. So I think it's a brilliant opportunity for travel managers today to really redefine how a business looks at travel and how that travel ROI is measured. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't say that the travel manager's role is disappearing by any means. I think the travel manager's role probably plays a much bigger strategic part or a bigger strategic role within the organisation, looking at where people can travel, making sure people understand what's required of them for travelling, and then also, are they doing that sustainably? So it's a brilliant opportunity to redefine that role.
Very exciting indeed. Daunting, yet exciting, I'd imagine, for a travel manager.
I totally agree. And actually, just before I finish, Aman, let me put a question back to you. So you've got your ear to the ground. Obviously, as the head of our consultation department, you're constantly looking at things like travel programs and travel policies, etc. So what would you say is happening today? What's the latest and the latest focus, I guess, for travel managers out there right now?
Well, my recommendation, I was thinking I would be able to get away with this without answering.
Never.
Well, I've long felt that in order for travel to take place successfully, it requires four components to work seamlessly together. So the first one being governments permitting travel, the second being the presence of suppliers to facilitate it, the third being individual companies accepting face-to-face meetings as part of their strategy to grow their business, and lastly, obviously, employees' willingness to travel. In a pre-COVID, pre-Brexit environment, we took a number of these for granted, and approval for travel largely focused on costs. Now there are challenges to all of these components, and to some respects, at least internationally, they will remain present for the next 18 months at least, and the economic fallout could be even more. So my advice to businesses is that they should plan now for a return. So once government starts permitting business travel, in the UK, that's the case now for domestic travel, and some elements of international trips are permissible. Commercially, it's important you're not left behind. Of course, digital conferencing is not new. It existed and was largely on the periphery for a reason, because face-to-face meetings are core to building relationships and increasing productivity, essential ingredients for business growth. So right now, businesses must be setting a clear pathway to acceptable travel, which works within these four components. That's why in our consultancy team, we have created a package for our clients which focuses on pre-authorization process, approver identification and training, as well as supplier management based on safety and traveler wellness at its core. We'll launch this in May through our website, ggg.travel/consulting, and our LinkedIn pages. So watch this space.
Fabulous, Aman. I knew you'd have a view on that, definitely.
But for now, Suzanne, thank you for your time. I'm sure it's provided an invaluable input to help our clients navigate through the travel landscape.
Thank you.
Now back to our team in Loughborough.